It's not as if she were a maniac, a raving thing. She just goes a little mad sometimes. We all go a little mad sometimes.
Hello, and welcome to another exciting episode of RT Essentials. I'm Nikki Novak, and we're looking back at some of the very best, most vital, important, and if I'm being very honest here, groundbreaking films of all time. Of course, I could be talking about nothing other than horse movies. From Black Beauty to My Friend Flicka to... Huh? Hold on a second. Oh, okay. This episode now contains a shocking twist. That is right. There will be no horses. It's horror, not horses. Ha! I got ya. I could be the next M. Night Shyamalan. Anyways, today we're looking back on the most essential horror movie twists of all time. That is right. These are the spooky films that managed to completely upend audience expectations, and we're going to walk you through all of these thrilling and suspenseful reveals right from the safety of wherever you're watching this right now. Hopefully not in a secluded house. Hopefully it's not haunted. That would probably be a little bit intense for this episode. You're going to just need to focus on those creaking floorboards I'm hearing. And obviously, we're gonna have to slap this episode with the largest spoiler warning stamp we could possibly ever give you, because we're basically going to ruin a huge part of these movies' plots if you haven't seen them.
Something in the mist! Something in the mist!
Dan.
Took John Lee!
Dan, catch your breath.
Something in the mist took John Lee, and I could hear him screaming, "Shut the doors! Shut the doors, my God!"
Daddy, I'm scared. Can we go home?
The Mist. Thomas Jane stars as artist David Drayton, who takes his 8-year-old son Billy to the supermarket just after a severe thunderstorm as a thick mist spreads around their main hometown. The problem is, wouldn't you know, it contains horrible creatures that like to eat people, prompting David, little Billy, and a whole bunch of other folks to hole up in the market and hide for dear life.
All the way down! Where are they? On! Myron!
Ambrose!
I'm hitting her broken. Oh, fuck.
Come on.
We gotta go. Come on.
They're lost.
Now, in the original story, David escapes with his son and a few other survivors, but they're unable to get back home, so they try to drive to Hartford to stay ahead of the killer mist, and that's how it ends. In Darabont's twisted film conclusion, however, David and his fellow survivors agree to commit suicide together rather than succumb to the monsters. But just after he shoots everyone in the car, even little Billy, he runs out of bullets. Only then does he see the US Army in the process of exterminating the creatures and restoring civilization, meaning that his friends and son would have survived if he'd only waited just a few more minutes. It is so agonizing. 2007's The Mist was actually the third Stephen King adaptation from writer-director Frank Darabont, but the first time he'd taken on one of the author's straight-up horror stories. Believe it or not, Darabont had another concept for the ending that would twist the knife or thicken the fog even further. Post-suicide pact, David would have also seen a passing truck carrying most of the other people who had stayed at the supermarket, meaning that if he had simply remained there instead of going out on his own, his son would have also survived. Darabont only came up with this ending after sending most of the cast home rather than bringing them back to Louisiana to shoot new footage, and went with his original, still super bleak version. Author Stephen King, who's not always a fan of other interpretations of his stories, nonetheless praised Darabont's new conclusion for The Mist, which he called frightening and said it gave him a jolt. Well, if you can jolt Stephen King, that's definitely a sign that you, my sir, are on the right track.
Hi, sweetie. Hi. Look who's here. Hi.
Hello, Max. My name is Esther.
She's been practicing the whole way.
Orphan. The story centers on a couple, Kate and John, played by Vera Farmiga and Peter Sarsgaard, respectively. Following a family tragedy, they adopt Esther, a 9-year-old Russian girl from a local orphanage, but she soon starts exhibiting some strange and even violent behavior. It's not long before Kate begins suspecting that Esther may actually be evil, though John assures her she's just being paranoid, she's just a kid, that's what kids do. But ultimately, it turns out that Kate was 100% totally right all along about the evil thing.
Grace! My God, stop! Just stop talking and go upstairs. Go to your room.
Stop talking to me like I'm a child.
I'm calling Sister Judith tomorrow. We're gonna have a conversation about your future in this house. I can't do it. I can't do it anymore.
Esther is actually a 33-year-old woman named Lena Kammer from Estonia who suffers from a rare hormonal disorder that stunts her growth and makes her appear childlike and small. She has spent her life posing as a little girl in order to get away with the murders. The film ends with Kate killing Lena, sending her dead body to the bottom of an icy pond. The film was actually inspired, this is the biggest plot twist, you guys. It was inspired by a real news item from May 2007. An actual 34-year-old woman named Barbara Skrilova had posed as an orphan in the Czech Republic.
Going somewhere, Kate?
What are you doing here?
She's fine. Let's not wake her.
Go to your room.
Honestly, we're past that now, aren't we?
I know what you're doing. I will not let you hurt my children.
Actress Isabelle Fuhrman was only 12 when Orphan came out, though she will reprise her role of Esther now in her 20s for the prequel, Orphan: First Kill.
What did I tell you about sitting on the floor?
But it's clean.
It makes no difference. Why can't you ever do as you're told?
The Others. Nicole Kidman stars as Grace Stewart, who moves with her 2 children into a remote country house. Why are these people always moving into remote country houses? Stop it! Anyway, it was on the Channel Island of Jersey in the immediate aftermath of World War II. Now, the kids suffer from a physical sensitivity to light, requiring Grace and her trio of new servants to keep a close and protective watch over them. Over time, Grace begins to hear strange noises and sensing a dark and intrusive presence in her home. She comes to believe it's haunted by ghosts who think that the house belongs to them. Now here is the shocking twist. Grace and her kids and the servants are themselves the darn ghosts. During the war, it seems, Grace killed her kids and committed suicide, but now her spirit just can't accept what she's done. The strange noises she's hearing are the living people who have moved into the house, and they're actually trying to expel her from the family, but they don't succeed.
Where did they go?
They just came past here. Didn't you see them?
Which way did they go?
Over there. Oh, and down there as well. They're everywhere. They say this house is theirs.
The film concludes with Grace deciding the house is hers and she will not tolerate any new occupants. The 2001 revisionist haunted house flick The Others came to be because Tom Cruise dug writer-director Alejandro Amenabar's previous film, Abre los Ojos, aka Open Your Eyes, not to be mistaken with Eyes Wide Shut. Cruise and Cameron Crowe bought the rights to Open Your Eyes and did a US remake of Vanilla Sky. Penelope Cruz plays the same part in both movies.
Don't come any closer! Don't move!
All
Don't trouble yourself.
Though it was produced in English, most of the film was nonetheless shot in Spain. The house used for the shoot is the Palacio de los Hornillos in Cantabria, which was designed in 1904 by a London-based architect for the Duke of Santa Mauro. It's one of the few examples of Victorian architecture in Spain. A Tale of Two Sisters. The film's story centers on a teenage girl, Sumi, who's released from a mental institution and returns home to her family's secluded estate, along with her father, protective younger sister, and stepmother. She has dreams about her late mother and comes to suspect that her stepmother, who was her mother's former nurse, may have been responsible for her death. She also sees her stepmother tormenting and abusing her younger sister. But of course, as has become a little bit obvious from many of the films on this list, things are not exactly always as they seem, especially in remote and secluded estates. I'm saying, stop going to them, people. Sumi and her father actually have been alone in the house the entire time. Initially, it seems as if she's just been having elaborate delusions brought about as a result of her dissociative identity disorder. And though that would appear to be a pretty good explanation, there's actually a second and even more shocking turn. The vision of Sumi's younger sister and mother were not delusions, but spirits. Sumi was actually seeing their ghosts who returned to take revenge on her very real and actual, quite evil stepmother. Though, if you pay close attention, A Tale of Two Sisters gives the darn game away a few times before the actual twist is revealed. In the very first scene of the movie, in fact, Sumi's doctor shows her a photograph and asks her which person in it she thinks she is. That's such a huge clue that she has trouble distinguishing between her personas. 2003's A Tale of Two Sisters was a landmark on a number of levels. It was one of the very first Korean films to get a theatrical release in the US, and along with Old Boy, also in 2003, the movie helped to introduce American audiences to the booming Korean film industry. It remains the highest grossing South Korean horror film of all time.
I'm really not that interested in it. Come on, man, just one more. Double or nothing. Enough's enough. What are you, scared?
April Fool's Day. April Fool's Day is a horror comedy at heart. It follows a group of college friends who spend the weekend leading up to April Fool's Day, their spring break, at the island mansion of socialite Muffy St. John. Muffy has set up various pranks around the mansion, which start out innocent enough, but eventually become a little bit scary and a little bit violent. Before long, it's discovered that Muffy has actually a violently insane twin sister, Buffy. Can't make this up. I mean, she's been slaying vampires and dealing with a hellmouth, so that would drive anybody to the edge, seriously. As it turns out, though, in a decidedly non-horror movie turn, no one has been hurt or killed. There is no Buffy, and Muffy is just playing an elaborate trick on everybody. She's just hoping to turn the mansion into a resort for stage horror events, kind of a proto-escape room, and use this weekend as a test run. She is my queen! Great idea, Muff. She even had Hollywood effects folks helping her pull it off. At the very conclusion, it seems momentarily like one of the partygoers, confused and not knowing about the prank, suddenly shows up to kill Muffy. But no, this too was just a trick, and everybody's totally fine. The slasher genre had completely blown up by the mid-1980s and was so popular there were even a number of sub-genres. April Fool's Day was one of a number of 80s slashers based around holidays or special events. The filmmakers originally planned a darker ending that would have revealed a non-prank real plot by Muffy's cousin to kill her and claim the mansion for himself. Dude, it wasn't that good a business idea. Not worth murdering over, honestly. This was actually shot, but Paramount executives felt it was too dark and preferred the sillier, it was all a gag version. So any real murders or attempted murders were cut out of the film. The very last shot of a winking Jack-in-the-Box was filmed as a compromise months after the original shoot had wrapped because the producer Frank Mancuso felt that the new cut lacked a strong closing beat.
Il est prêt, on peut l'emmener. Emmène-lui ses chaussures.
Les Diabolique. Director Henri-Georges Clouzot made a number of important thrillers and crime films over the course of his career, leading to frequent comparisons to the great Alfred Hitchcock. Perhaps his best remembered film is 1955's Les Diaboliques, based on the book She Who Was No More by Pierre Boileau and Thomas Narcejac. It's set at a boarding school in Paris, run by the tyrannical and abusive Michel. His wife Christina and her friend Nicole, who's also a teacher at the school, feel pushed to the very edge by the cruel Michel. So what do? They drown him in a bathtub and then dump his body in a neglected swimming pool. The problems arise when the body actually continually disappears, and Christina and Nicole start hearing stories from people who claim to have seen Michel around town. On one occasion, Christina returns to her home to find Michel's body in the bathtub. When he appears to wake up and come after her, she has a heart attack from shock and dies. The film then reveals that Michel and Nicole had actually set Christina up from the very beginning. They faked Michel's murder and then proceeded to torment his wife, knowing that she was in frail health and her weak heart would fail if she suffered a great shock. They would have gotten away with it too if a private detective who was investigating the case didn't happen to overhear them discussing their plot and turn them over to the authorities. In a final twist, a local boy indicates that he's seen Christina around town even after her supposed death. Hold on, guys. Is she a ghost now? Is there an even deeper level of deception happening here? Well, guess what? We never even found out. So I'm sorry to even raise the question in the first place. I don't have an answer for you. Night of the Living Dead. Romero's film codified a lot of these modern notions of what makes a zombie in this film. They're reanimated corpses that shuffle around and walk slowly and desire to eat only human flesh.
Stop it! You're ignorant.
They're coming for you, Barbara.
Stop it! You're acting like a child.
They're coming for you. Look, there comes one of them now.
The movie opens with siblings Barbara and Johnny visiting their father's grave, only to discover that dead bodies seem to be waking up and attacking people. Banding together with the calm and resourceful trucker Ben and a few other survivors in the area, they hear radio and TV reports about a zombie outbreak spreading across the eastern coast of the US. Scientists believe it may be due to radiation from a space probe sent from Earth to Venus.
Get the cellar now! Move!
Eventually, everyone dies except Ben, who survives a long, zombie-filled night in a cellar and emerges in the morning as an armed posse takes out a number of ghouls in the area. Unfortunately, they suspect Ben is a zombie himself, and they shoot him. The movie ends with his body burning atop a pile of corpses. Now, contrary to what you might have heard, George A. Romero's 1968 classic Night of the Living Dead did not invent the zombie horror genre. In fact, the word zombie isn't even used during the movie. These monsters are called ghouls. At the time Romero made the film, the American cultural idea about zombies was more directly related to Haitian voodoo practices, and earlier zombie movies featured very different kinds of monsters than what we think of as today's modern Walking Dead. Saw was the first screenplay written by Australian Lee Whannell, who conceived of the story along with his film school pal, James Wan. This, of course, is the same duo that would later give the world both the Conjuring and Insidious franchises, not to mention creepy puppet movie Dead Silence and a very memorable Jason Momoa slow-mo in Aquaman. The film, as it actually stands, is set almost entirely in a very dirty-looking abandoned industrial washroom. That's where photographer Adam Stanheidt, who's played in the film by Whannell, wakes up chained to a pipe opposite oncologist Dr. Lawrence Gordon. He's played by the Dread Pirate Roberts. Cary Elwes. Between them lies an apparent suicide victim holding a gun and a cassette recorder. By listening to the tapes, they learn that they have been taken prisoner by the Jigsaw Killer, who subjects his victims to twisted and violent games that test their will to survive. Dr. Gordon ultimately does survive by sawing off his own foot. But just one, he does get to keep the other. Adam, however, sticks around long enough to discover that the dead body on the ground is not actually a dead body, but Dr. Gordon's former cancer patient, John Kramer, the Jigsaw Killer himself. He gets up and seals Adam into the washroom to die. All's fair. He lost the game. You gotta have rules somewhere, or we're just totally living in anarchy, right?
Key to that chain is in the bathtub.
Though the film and the franchise it spawned eventually became synonymous with gory violence and so-called torture porn, Whannell and Wan originally felt that the twist would be the major selling point. Actor Tobin Bell, who plays the Jigsaw Killer, also said he agreed to make the film because he didn't even see the twist coming when he read the script, and he thought he'd be working on the whole project just for the final big reveal. The original movie still did receive an NC-17 from the MPAA for its extreme violence. One scene in which a man struggles to pull himself through barbed wire was shortened, as was a scene with a woman digging through a man's intestines. They're actually just pig intestines. Come on, we're on a budget here. Psycho. The story concerns troubled motel owner Norman Bates, played in a classic and career-defining turn by Anthony Perkins. He's hounded by his domineering mother, with whom he lives in a big house overlooking the property. Real estate secretary Marion Crane is murdered in the shower while staying at the Bates Motel after having stolen a $40,000 cash payment from her employers in Phoenix and taking off. Norman hides her belongings, including the money, in her car and sinks it into a nearby swamp. He then must deal with Marion's sister, her boyfriend Sam, and a private detective Arbogast, who all show up looking for the now missing woman and cash. After Norman kills Arbogast, Lila and Sam discovered the mummified corpse of Norman's mother in the house's fruit cellar. It turns out Norman, believing himself now to actually be his jealous and possessive mother, committed the crimes himself. The film ends with him in jail while Marion's car is retrieved by authorities.
I'm not even gonna swat that fly. I hope they are watching. They'll see. They'll see and they'll know. And they'll say, why, she wouldn't even harm a fly.
Psycho was a radical change of pace for Hitchcock, who had just before made the globe-trotting espionage adventure North by Northwest. By comparison, this new film was made with a lower budget, in black and white, with the aid of the TV crew he used for his show Alfred Hitchcock Presents. It also became his most commercially successful film of all time, bringing in $32 million at the North American box office from a budget of just $807,000. This marked the fifth and final time Hitch would be nominated for Best Director, though he never won. Sure, yes, he received an honorary Irving G. Thalberg Memorial Award in 1968, but I mean, come on, that is just crazy. He never won his Oscar. Iconic filmmaker Alfred Hitchcock paid just $9,000 for the rights to author Robert Bloch's 1959 novel Psycho after reading a positive review of the book in the New York Times. He was extremely secretive about the project throughout its development, afraid that audiences would find out some of the big twists before the movie was released. That included purchasing the rights to the book anonymously so the trades couldn't tip people off to read it and find out what happens. He also refused to screen the film at all, even for press, prior to its release. Despite all of his best efforts, The Hollywood Reporter still ran a story revealing the ending months before the film came out, but thankfully not that many people read, even in 1960.
I know that I've been a little distant. I know that it makes you mad. I just feel like I'm being given a second chance and I don't want it to slip away. Anna.
Happy anniversary.
And, of course, drumroll please, we close out with the Twistmaster General himself, M. Night Shyamalan. Contrary to popular opinion, 1999's sleeper smash The Sixth Sense was not Shyamalan's directorial debut. He made two previous films, the 1992 indie drama Praying with Anger and the 1998 comedy drama Wide Awake. Sixth Sense, however, defined the concept of an M. Night Shyamalan film for the remainder of his career. He is still coming up those darn twist endings, not to mention pulling 6 Oscar nominations, including Best Picture, Best Director, and Original Screenplay, and a cool $672.8 million at the global box office, making it the second highest grossing film of the year. It was also coincidentally released on Shyamalan's 29th birthday. That must have been a party weekend, a total rager. I really hope they danced all night long and did the twist.
She wanted me to tell you.
Oh, please
She wanted me to tell you she saw you dance. She said, when you were little, you and her had a fight right before your dance recital.
Bruce Willis stars as child psychologist Malcolm Crowe. 1 year after being violently attacked by a former patient in his home, Crowe returns to work and takes up the case of a 9-year-old boy named Cole, memorably played by young Haley Joel Osment. The boy believes he sees ghosts walking around everywhere he goes, only they don't know that they've died. Though at first he believes that Cole is simply troubled. Over time, Malcolm becomes convinced that the boy is telling the truth, and he encourages him to try and communicate with the spirits. Of course, the now infamous twist is that Malcolm was actually dead the whole time. I just gave myself chills saying it. He was killed by that former patient in his home, but needed to stay behind and help another boy, Cole, before he could move on to the afterlife.
Don't go home, okay?
I definitely won't.
Well, we used up our shocking twist in the intro, so I'm afraid I don't have anything else really for you. Wait, hold on. Oh! As it turns out, I've been dead this whole time. That's wild. I guess it's being left ambiguous. But here's what's not ambiguous. You should stay tuned to Rotten Tomatoes for lots more essential info, updates, and strolls down memory lane about all our favorite movies of yesterday and today. See you next time.